Welcome back from an ad break. So now we're going to move on to our application questions, and remember they are still based on chemical reactions. We are given that this formula given SO2 plus O2 reacts to form. Remember the arrow says that it is reacting to form. The reactants are going to rearrange themselves. The reactants are going to break the existing bonds and form new bonds. And once they form new bonds, they are going to be rearranging themselves to form products. So this sign shows that it is the reactants are reacting to form, and then this plus sign is just simply separating the reactants. Remember, the plus sign separates the reactants if there's more than one reactant. Now, our task is to balance the chemical equation. So in balancing the chemical equation, we start by counting the number of atoms on either side, on the reactants and also on the products. So I have reactants and products. So sulfur S, how many do I have? On the reactants, I have one. There's only just the one. Now, the oxygen, we have two oxygens here because of the subscript 2. We also have two oxygens here because of the subscript 2. And because both of them are found on the left-hand side, both of them, they are reactants. In total, I have how many oxygens? 4. Now, what about the products? On the products, I only have one sulfur. So as we can see, the sulfur is balanced. But then now what about the oxygen? There's no other oxygen on the reactants. There's only just this one in this particular compound. And we are told that there's 3 atoms of oxygen in this compound. We are told by that subscript. So oxygens, how many do we have? We have 3. Then by just merely doing that, we can see that there is a problem. The sulfur, they are balanced, there's one on either side, but the oxygen is not balanced. So that is our starting point. We need to start there. So what do we do when we balance? We choose a coefficient to add in front of a chemical formula so that we can either multiply the coefficients up until the equations on both sides, they are balanced. So let's see. We start by rewriting the chemical formula before balancing it. SO2 plus O2 reacting to form SO3. So not to be confused, we're just going to erase that so that when we balance, we can see exactly where we are going. 1, 1. So now what is going to happen if I put a 2 here? Now, if I insert a 2, remember that there's no one way of balancing equations. So you can never just look at an equation and know what number that you're going to be substituting there. So it takes practice. So you need to practice more of balancing equations up until you can be confident in saying that whatever equation that you're going to be given, you can at least try, and you know that you're going to get it correct by the end of the day, or at the end of the day. So if we're putting a 2 here, we're now saying that we have 1 sulfur here, and then we have 1 sulfur here. Oxygen, there's 2, and 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 2 is 6, so it's 1 sulfur, oxygen, there's 6. And then here, oxygen, how many do we have? We have 3. So if I put a 2 again there so that I can balance the oxygen, that means this is going to be 2 sulfur. Sulfur now is going to be 2. Oxygen is now going to be 6. And now we're seeing that this is not going to balance. So what is it that we can do in order to balance this particular chemical equation? Let's see. We are seeing that by choosing this number, it doesn't work for us. We need to choose a second number that is going to balance this particular chemical equation. So the number that I am choosing is still 2, but then in a different place. So if I put in a 2 here in front of the first reactant, I now know that I have 2 sulfur. I have 2 times 2, which is going to be 4 oxygen on the left-hand side. Remember, there's still 2 more oxygens there. So in total, on the left-hand side, I have 6 oxygens. Then on the right-hand side, I have 1 sulfur and 3 oxygens. So if I also put in another 2 here, so I've balanced by using these 2 numbers here. So now I will have 2 times 2, our sulfur is going to be 2, and then oxygen, 2 times 3 is 6. So our oxygen is going to be 6. And by so doing, we're seeing that the type and the number is maintained on either side. We have 2 sulfur on the left-hand side, 2 on the right-hand side. 6 oxygens on the left-hand side, 6 oxygen on the right-hand side. So because we have maintained our type and our number, we can say that this equation is balanced. Now let's move on to the next one. So again, still in keeping with our same equation, remember we balanced this equation by putting a 2 here and a 2 there. So we need to complete this sentence by using this balanced equation. So it says that 2 of SO2 reacts with something of O2 to form something molecules of SO3. So what 2 of SO2? 2 molecules of SO2. Where do we get these 2? There. So 2 molecules of SO2 reacts with what? We have oxygen. How many molecules of oxygens do we have? We only have 1. So reacts with 1 molecule of oxygen to form what? How many SO3s do we have? How many molecules do we have there? 2. So therefore, to form 2 molecules of SO3. So the sentence must read, 2 molecules of SO2 reacts with 1 molecule of O2 to form 2 molecules of SO3. Now our next question is a bit complex. We have 3 equations that we're supposed to be chemically balanced. They're supposed to be chemically balanced. Now, remember we start by rewriting the chemical equation even before attempting to balance it. Reacts to form ZnCl2 plus H2. Now, counting the number of atoms. We have 1 zinc, we have 1 zinc. So it's balanced. Hydrogens, we have 1 this side, or we can even use that. We have 1 zinc, 1 zinc. Hydrogens, we have 1, but we have 2 on the other side. So hydrogen, not balanced. Chlorine, we have 1 chlorine, but remember the 2, the subscript, we have 2 chlorines on the other side. So the hydrogen and the chlorine are not balanced. So we need to balance that because we have 2 on the other side and then 1 on the other side. So this one is a fairly easy one to do. We need to balance what is not balanced. In this case, if I put a 2 here, I see 1 zinc, 1 zinc. I also see 2 hydrogens, 2 hydrogens. Also, 2 chlorines, 2 chlorines. So everything else is balanced. The type is the same and the number is still the same. We have a certain number of reactants and those number of reactants are equals to the number of the products on the other side. So we can say that this equation is balanced by putting in the 2 that we have there. Then our next question, again we need to balance this equation. We have P plus O2 reacting to form P2O5. We have 1 P, 1 phosphorus, but then we have 2 phosphorus on the other side. We have 2 oxygen, we have 5 oxygen on the other side. How do we then balance? If I insert a 2 here, I have 2 phosphorus, I have 2 phosphorus. But then now I've created a problem, or there's still this problem of oxygen. It is not balanced. So if now I say, again, I put a 2 there. By putting that 2, I might probably be solving a problem but creating another one. So that means I will have 2 times 2. I will have 4 phosphorus here, but then this side I have 2. So that means this must be 4. I have 4 phosphorus, 4, 2 times 2, which is 4. Now, what about the oxygen? Remember that we multiply the coefficient with the subscript. So 2 times the 5 is 10. So on the right-hand side of the products, I have 10 oxygen. Then what about now the reactants? So if I insert a 5 here, now that tells me that I need to multiply the 5 with the 2. So I have 4P, and then I have 10 oxygen, and then on the right-hand side, which is the products, 2 times 2, I have 4P, 2 times 5, it is 10 oxygen. So you can see again there that the type and the number is balanced. So we can then say that our equation is balanced. Now let's look at our last one. We have Fe reacting with O2, and they are reacting to form FeO. Let's see if this is balanced. We have one Fe, one ion on the left-hand side, one ion on the right-hand side. So that is balanced. But oxygen, we have 2 on the left-hand side and 1 on the right-hand side. So I need to make sure that now my oxygen is balanced on both sides. So now, if I put a 2 here, remember that this 2 doesn't only affect the O, it affects everything in that compound. So that means I will have 2 Fe and 2 O. So if I have 2 Fe here and 1 Fe there, that means even this side there must be a 2, because 2 Fe, 2 Fe, so that's balanced. So this 2 also affects the O, and now it's 2O. On this side again, the reactants, I still have 2 oxygens. Now, because again we can see that the type and the number is maintained, we can then say that this equation is balanced. So all of these equations are balanced by just inserting the coefficients. You'll notice that we did not touch any subscript, and we did not insert our coefficients in between the chemical formula. It was always before, at the beginning of the chemical formula, where we insert our coefficients. Now, before we continue, let's quickly go for an ad break, and I'll see you just after this.